After the hour, I think we should get started.
Fine.
And hopefully a few more will show up as we progress through this. So good evening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Doug Marshall, and I am president of Hope for the Homeless Foundation. And I truly want to thank you for being here tonight. For the past 27 years, my passion has been to help the homeless. And during this time, I've either volunteered or I've led organizations that help those less fortunate than ourselves. In 2019, I asked a group of like-minded individuals to come to a meeting where I laid out my vision for helping the homeless. And that meeting resulted in the formation of Hope for the Homeless Foundation. HHF is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with an 8-member board. So I'm going to ask the board members as I introduce you to give a wave so people can connect a face with the name. And I know it depends on, how you got your setup, but I'm going to do it anyway. Besides myself, the board members are my wife, Carol, Linda Gillum, Jerry Mason.
Where's Jerry?
He's here screwing around, trying to figure out how to do this thing.
Okay, you're doing a good job. Stephen Marilyn
right.
McCarty. Molly Riken. And Connor Tripp. We have an awesome board. We really do. It's a worker bee board. It's the perfect board. There are 3 reasons for tonight's meeting. First is to give you an overview of Hope for the Homeless Foundation and how we are truly unique from all the other organizations helping the homeless in the Portland area. And once that is done, we'll follow it up with a Q&A session so you can ask any questions you might want. Secondly, we're going to ask for donations tonight. Imagine that. And then afterwards, Marshall Stevens is going to lead us in a brainstorming session where we would like you to suggest people that you know who could be interested in hearing this presentation. So let's get started. I thought the best way to start is to show a few photos that represent the impact of the homeless crisis in the Portland area. Notice that these photos are not just of downtown Portland, but throughout the 3-county area. And just as a reminder, at any point during our discussion, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask, okay? So this one here is in the urban core of downtown Portland. This is out in Troutdale. And this is along the Springwater corridor on the east side of Portland. And this is out in the Tiger-Tualatin area. So the homeless problem in Portland is immense, and it's not going away. Here are some recent headlines from the Oregonian on the topic. All you have to do is walk around downtown Portland to see that we have a homeless crisis. And again, it's not just in downtown Portland, it is throughout the 3-county area. And unfortunately, it's getting worse, not better. Have you noticed how much it's gotten worse since COVID? It really has gotten extremely or significantly worse in the last year. Now, you may be frustrated like I am that much has been spent on helping the homeless, but with very little apparent results. And I believe there are 4 reasons why that might be the case. So the first problem is that most nonprofits focus on compassionate care, not on the root causes of homelessness. The larger circle represents the vast majority of nonprofits that help the homeless. There are many well-intentioned charities providing food, clothing, and temporary shelter and other services to the homeless. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need to be compassionate to the less fortunate, but compassionate care doesn't solve the problem. And in fact, in some cases, it actually enables the problem to grow and fester. The smaller circle represents a smaller group of nonprofits that focus on achieving permanent, stable housing for the homeless. They do this by tackling root causes of homelessness. And there are a few organizations that do both. And that's why I show those circles overlapping. There are some organizations that do both. Again, The only way to achieve permanent, stable housing for the homeless is to address the root causes of homelessness. But the problem is that the majority of nonprofits provide compassionate care, which doesn't reduce the number of homeless on the street. And there are three other additional reasons why the homeless crisis is getting worse, not better. The second problem is that many nonprofits have poor record keeping. You know, if you asked how many people they got off the street last year, they wouldn't know. And if you can't answer that basic question, how do you know if you're doing a good job or not? And the honest answer is they can't. Third problem is some nonprofits provide housing with no case management, which is really a recipe for failure. Providing housing is not the solution. It's a good first step, but without tackling the underlying causes of homelessness, the homeless person will very likely end up back on the street. And then the fourth problem is that many times the homeless are not, or many times the results are not cost effective. By that, I mean, the cost per person help doesn't make sense financially. I read a recent article about a homeless program in San Francisco where it cost $93,000 annually to get one homeless person housed. And that's just not sustainable. So these are the four reasons why the homeless crisis in the Portland area is getting worse, not better. But I believe there is a solution, and the solution is Hope for the Homeless Foundation, specifically our business model. But before we talk about the business model, let me explain what we do. As you can read right there, HHF is a foundation that financially partners with nonprofit organizations that are doing great work helping the homeless gain stability so they're no longer homeless. So what we do is we find those organizations out there that are doing a good job helping people get off the street, and we financially partner with them. And we seek out organizations that, first of all, and most importantly, they tackle an underlying cause of homelessness. Their goal is to get the homeless into permanent housing, who can verify and quantify their results and whose results are cost effective. So that's what we do as an organization. And there are some other things I think that make us different.
Good on there.
We have no paid staff. Fundraising expenses are covered by the board, and our overhead expenses represent less than 5% of the donations received. So that's one thing where we right now are, there's no paid staff, and we have a lean overhead at this point. Secondly, we don't want to just throw money at the problem. We want our donations to be directed to those nonprofits that are most effective in returning the homeless back to stability. And thirdly, and most importantly, from my perspective, is our vetting process is what makes our organization stand out from all the other organizations in the Portland area helping the homeless. Nobody else does this. And let me explain. So in our first year, we identified 46 nonprofits helping the homeless in the Portland area. And I'm convinced there are many, many more than that. But at this point, I think that we got a good start in 2020, identifying the nonprofits. And of these, 25 were invited to complete our online application for a grant. Of these, 9 actually did so and provided their financial statements and their current budget, anything that they thought that might be helpful to us to understand who they are and what they do. And of those 9, we approved 8 for an on-site visit, and a vetting score was determined. And of these, we recommended 4 for a vote of our donors, which I'll explain in a minute. But before I do, let me explain our vetting scorecard. So the vetting scorecard answers 7 critically important questions. The first question is the most important. In fact, it is the game changer. If we ask the question, does your organization tackle a root cause of homelessness? And if the answer is no, then there is no need to proceed any further. They would be on the compassionate care side of the nonprofits. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but our focus is on actually getting people off the street. So if the answer is yes, then we find out how well they do with the other 6 questions. The next question is, do they know the number of people they attempted to help with housing last year? And then do they know their success rate? How many of those they attempted to help did they actually succeed at helping? Do they know their success rate one year later? And is their effort cost effective? And then would a financial grant from HHF impact their results? Some of these organizations have multi-million-dollar budgets, and a grant from us wouldn't impact the results one bit, wouldn't move the needle at all. And finally, do they focus on those already homeless or those who have the potential of becoming homeless? Our focus is on those who are currently homeless. So after we get the answers to these questions, each organization is given an objective score based on these 7 questions. So what makes us different, as we say right here, we vet these organizations so you don't have to. And I don't believe there's anybody else in the Portland area that does this. So when you support Hope for the Homeless Foundation, you can rest assured that we are finding those organizations that are doing great work helping the homeless return to stability. So that's what we do. We calculate an objective numerical score for each grant applicant, and those who receive the highest score are then presented to our donors for a vote. And those donors last year who had given $1,000 or more get to vote where their donations were allocated among the finalists. So at our online fundraising event last November, each grant finalist was presented to our donors via a 2-minute video. Each grant finalist had a 2-minute video that explains who they are and what they do. Then the donors who gave $1,000 or more got the opportunity to vote on which finalists they chose to get a larger allocation of our grant money. So this gives our donors a chance to actually influence where the money is going to be awarded. So in our first year as an organization, we awarded financial grants totaling $100,000 to 4 worthy organizations that are doing great work for the homeless. And those 4 are, our first place vote getter was Do Good Multnomah. They help homeless veterans. Our second place vote getter was Road to Hope, and they help homeless pregnant women. And our third and fourth place vote getters were Community of Hope and Family Promise of Beaver, and they help homeless families with children, okay? And as an example of the impact of our financial grants, which were just given back in December, Road to Hope has already hired another resident advisor, and they're in the process of hiring an administrative assistant to improve their services to homeless pregnant women. So in 2020, which was important to us, is we were able to confirm that our business model for helping the homeless works. That's what we accomplished last year. And now we feel it's time to scale up. $100,000 was awarded in 2020. And our goal is to increase that amount 3-fold in 2021 to $300,000, with the eventual goal of awarding $3 million in grant money within 5 years. So for some of you, this is your first time hearing about HHF. And you have a heart for the homeless, which is why we're asking you to partner with HHF to tackle this homeless crisis with what we believe is a workable solution. So if you're inclined, we'd love for you to donate to HHF. And here's how you do it. You can either donate by check, and there's the address, or you can donate by credit card. Just go to our website, hhfpdx.org, find the contribute button. It's on a couple of different places on our website, and just follow the instructions.